Salutations all and welcome to Medulla Talk. I'm your host, Devontae Hill. This episode is episode 15, season 1. Houston strong inside Hurricane Harvey. Now, this is not a news recap, and we're not going to be interviewing some sobbing moms fresh from our rescue. No, today we're going to be sharing real experiences behind the storm, as well as our unique perspectives.
What's wrong with sobbing moms?
There's nothing wrong with them. But, you know, we want to add something different.
Okay. I was about to say, I was like, sobbing moms have good stories, too.
Yeah, this isn't just a ratings grab.
Shameless.
I'm joined today in the Afro Vibe studio with Sandra Hill. How you doing?
Pretty good, and you?
I'm doing good. Yeah. Curtis, how you doing, man?
Doing well. Thanks for having me.
Of course, Stephen Hawkins, the Stephen Hawkins.
Salutations.
And via phone, Gerald Jarman. How's this interview going to work out?
I am the voice of a generation.
I said the collective id of a generation.
No, I like voice of a generation better.
I think that's what you meant. Okay.
Let's get right into the show today. So we're going to break this thing down from the beginning, right? So in the beginning of the storm, we had reports from meteorologists saying this was going to be a really heavy storm. The actual eye of the storm was really huge. You could see it on satellite. Actually, Curtis, I do want to ask you, did you do any hurricane prep as you heard the news?
No. We were in Georgia visiting family right up to probably the day before the storm hit. So when we flew and we landed, that's when everybody was going kind of crazy, like, hey, we should be getting ready for this. And it's a little bit too late, you know, going out to stores and stuff like that. It was kind of tough to get ready.
What about you, Sandra?
I am a survivalist. Just put me in a militia and let me go, because my house stays ready for, my car stays ready for survival. I mean, I moved here from Ohio and moved to Wisconsin and then moved back after I retired. Mm-hmm. So you're used to blizzards, being snowed in, being cold, going to football games. You got to have 3 jet blankets and some coats and sand in the back of your car in case you get stuck.
Wait, hold on.
I had
rock and roll under the tires?
Oh, yeah.
For the salt.
So with your experience then, did you, were you out during the shortages of food and all that other stuff?
No, I mean, I went out, but when they first said that it was coming and you were seeing the white cloud out on the water, I started packing up and making sure I had everything I needed then. I stocked up on canned goods. I got rice and pastas, and I had Ozarka deliver me 3 extra 5 gallons of water, and
wow,
I'm just one of those.
So you didn't get hit by any
people.
of the Walmart stuff and people getting shortages of water.
But this is the thing, when we finally got my oldest daughter, because she's off of 1464 in the Richmond area, so that added people to the house. So I went out to get more bread. There was no bread on the shelves. I mean, you're talking about the only thing there was like the flaxseed, things that people don't buy and don't eat.
The vegan food.
It was
the
a wasteland.
Wants.
I had a friend straight up just quit being a vegan.
Yeah.
Like during the storm. I was laughing so hard because I was like, I felt her.
What was interesting?
No.
It was like locusts had gone through that store.
Right. What was interesting, though, to add to that, I know a lot of people on Facebook were saying, this store's out of water, this store's out of water. And when I did go into a store, I noticed all the juice was there.
Yeah.
Like, it's like people got so laser focused on water and like didn't realize that juice was a form of liquid that they could drink.
Yeah.
Or the Lipton teas.
Yeah.
Like
Powerade, Gatorade, like you know,
in there, like
coconut water. You know, people were really kind of just, like you said, laser focused on bottled water, and that was it. Yeah.
And you're not going to be needing it for forever. I mean, there was going to be a start and end period. Gee.
But survivalist Sandra, you know, zombie apocalypse. I'm coming over to your place. Just
my oldest daughter was laughing at me. She goes, "We've got 4 roasted chickens.
Yeah.
We've got."
It's crazy.
I'll be headed your way.
So this was a Category 5, right? We had 15 to 20 trillion gallons of water to hit Houston. I can go into a bunch of specs, but I'd rather not. Here's the thing. So, Curtis, you were driving through the city during this time?
driving through the city during the whole time, no. But then, when the storm actually did wax and kind of wane, yeah, I was late to the party when it came to getting stuff because I'd just come into back into town. So when we ran out of food the first time, because I do have 2 little girls, and some of their dietary needs are based off of water, which we didn't kind of want to just wing it. We wanted to get spring water and milk. I went out there in it, and just looking for stuff, and some places were open, some weren't.
Man,
surprisingly.
How long were you driving? Just
I mean, I'm not gonna go through names of grocery stores. So
yeah. But I'm just saying, like, how long?
But no, I mean, the nearby grocery stores did have, just they were supplied and had people actually working, which I was surprised. And
that was the crazy thing about it.
Yeah.
I'm going to touch on this a little bit later, but just the fact that McDonald's was open.
Yeah.
Like, I feel really bad about the workers there. I'm like, y'all got called into work, like, literally right after the storm hit.
They probably got paid. They probably got paid a little bit more. Like,
they might.
Did they though?
I do not know. That is
I'm going to
pure
go with the old
conjecture.
lady's face on that one. She,
Oh.
she said,
Well,
shaking her head
this
saying no.
is the thing. When we went out, kept checking to see if Regina's house was going to be, able to get to, because the water was hoping it was receding. We went past different stores. Walgreens, it had a line out front. They wouldn't let but one person in. If one came out, one could go in. They had a limited number of registers open. They had a limited number of employees, and they were watching for shoplifters, let's be honest.
Yep.
And the same thing when we went to the HEB on Highway 6 in Bel Air, that line was around the parking lot.
Yeah.
Waiting to get in the store, and they had a police car out there. They were really on top of people. I mean, you couldn't just get in that store and shop because they didn't have the people to handle it.
Right.
So no, I don't think the people were getting paid extra
No, I mean,
because a lot
McDonald's
of people didn't
isn't
come to work.
Walmart or Papa John's. I'm going to blow them up real quick because, I mean, they're not going to just take complete advantage of their workers. I mean, McDonald's does have a fairly good track record when it comes to that sort of thing. I mean, I can see them actually taking care of their people. They might have been stuck there, though. That was another part that my wife brought up, because my wife she's in emergency medicine, and she's a physician at Memorial Hermann, and they gave, I guess it was like a gray alert or something like that, where they were stay in place. Everybody who's, if you're at work, that's where you're going to be for the next however long, we don't know. If you're home, stay home. Don't try and come in because traveling could be dangerous. So I'm not sure if they have the same kind of protocols for restaurants or for.
Yeah. To add to that, Brittany's in news. So after the storm hit, they were trying to get producers to go to the studio. Now, the first thing that they had to realize was the studio was completely destroyed by the flood, and so they were operating out of PBS.
What?
Yeah, Channel 11 was completely destroyed. About 5 foot of water hit the whole
on the
first floor.
Wow.
Yeah, so they had to evacuate those folks to the federal building that's right next to the Federal Reserve building, and then after that, they moved everybody to PBS.
Wow.
Yeah. But the thing is, they kept calling people in because the folks that have been working there were there for 3 days straight, working 3 days straight. I mean, the news coverage was 24-hour. And so it was really interesting. And I was thinking, if they really wanted those people to go to work, send a helicopter.
Yeah.
How are they going to drive over there? That was my biggest thing. But to kind of speak about the response effort, how did you guys feel about the Cajun Navy?
I thought that was pretty dope. I'm not gonna say a lie. I'm from the country, so it really didn't surprise me that a bunch of rednecks essentially, jumped in their cars and are like, "Let's go, we got it, boy," and they just drove up here, got in their boats, launched their boats. Some of it, obviously. I know a lot of guys that that do things like that. Like, they love the adventure and stuff like that. And a huge portion of it too is they love to help people. Like, it's not like just like a thrill seek, but there is a thrill aspect of it. But there's also a kind of like a capacity that I got a boat. I can do that.
Yeah.
Government's not gonna be out here for another 2 years. Like what happened with like Katrina.
Now
Not 2 years, but that was obviously a hyperbole.
But it was a minute.
Yeah, it was a
definitely
while.
a long minute.
And apparently they were active during Katrina too. So this isn't anything like weird. Like they've definitely like done it before. They just hitch their boats up to their trucks, come driving, and they leave off where they can.
Yeah.
And really, their boats are the best thing that they brought because some of the water wasn't deep enough for actually a motor.
Exactly.
You get the propellers down in it, and it'll be hitting the road.
Mm-hmm.
But that airboat, you can float on top of the water. So it was a win-win situation as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
They were having a good time, and people were getting saved.
So-
Yahoo! I'm from the country, too, and those rednecks used to get those trucks and hit the dirt.
Yes.
And there's something
They
to be said
love it.
about that. There's something to be said about that because it was kind of a thrill when I did have to save my aunt. Swimming through a street, which you normally would never have that
Hold up.
opportunity.
He did. He really did.
Shameless plug.
Wait a minute.
So when I was rescuing people.
And the thing is, with an air mattress. This is
Oh wow. Okay, Monte. All right. Talk about how you save people.
Yeah.
Dude, like this is what I had to do. I was looking on social media, like, oh, look at this. Here we go. Like, come on, tell us. Come on, go for it.
He's
All
not
right, so-
embellishing though. I mean, it's not like he did say he was swimming in the water, not walking on it. So I mean, like, come on.
At least he had some sort of
I am human at the end of the day. So, yeah, I didn't have any divine help. No, but we had to go get some folks, and which is funny because the day before we were telling them they need to leave, but that's a whole nother conversation.
How'd you get the call?
Cell phone.
Yeah, it was just like,
Oh, it was just like, hey, water's getting pretty high. We need you guys to come get us. And we're just like, all right, here we go. So I had my cowboy boots on, ready to go to work.
you have cowboy boots?
Yeah, I did.
Wait,
yeah.
they didn't use a bat signal?
No. Unfortunately, the glare from the water was causing issues.
Oh, okay. So they,
all that rain was getting in the way.
Right, yeah. So we get there, and the road is about to flood in there, and we see the entrance of the neighborhood, and it's completely filled. There's actually a pickup truck that's like right in the middle of the intersection inside the neighborhood that's completely full of water. And so it's looking like a pretty bad situation. So we're just like, all right, let's figure out what we can do. So she did have somebody that has a boat, and she called them saying, hey, can you use your boat to come get us? So we're waiting on that individual. And nobody shows up. The National Guard eventually came to the scene, but they were starting from the far back of the neighborhood and then moving up. So by the time they would have gotten to my aunt, the road that my grandmother's truck was in probably would have been flooded by that time.
yeah.
So we had to make a move. So I was like, all right, let me just go ahead, hop in this water. It was cold, by the way, and get this air mattress from this random dude. I had to speak 3 different languages to get this air mattress because I thought at first it was a Hispanic family and it wasn't theirs, and then it was like a Vietnamese family, and he was like, they're speaking Vietnamese. I'm just like, mattress, and so eventually I just picked it up and I just started going, and then we were able to get a couple of bags or so and put them on the air mattress, and then I had my cousin on one and then my aunt on the other, and I was just basically pushing them as I was going through.
Wow.
So that was pretty fun. If minus the whole nasty water aspect of it, but
Did you get it in your mouth?
no, I
You get a hepatitis shot?
I learned from swimming in the Caribbean that you keep your mouth shut. 'Cause I had my mouth open during all that salt water. Yeah, I learned my lesson that way. So, anyway, yeah, that was kind of interesting.
That's pretty cool.
Sandra, I did want to ask you, what did you think about the donation efforts right after the storm hit? Because especially Kevin Hart came out on social media saying, "Hey guys, I'm donating $25,000 to Red Cross, and I encourage you guys to donate to Red Cross." What do you think about some of those aspects?
I'm not a fan of Red Cross. After Haiti, I'm not a fan of Red Cross and donations. I'd much rather people give their money to local charities. Especially after hearing, Red Cross has their fundraisers at Mar-a-Lago
Right.
and all this Trump stuff. And if you're going to waste my money paying Trump to have a banquet, No, you don't need my money then.
And then wasn't there a statistic saying that for every dollar that they get donated, only like 70 cents of that?
Administrative funds, you know.
Well,
actually,
anytime you're dealing with a large, like, national or probably international,
Worldwide, yeah.
international, like, like project or organization, there is going to be a percentage that does go towards overhead. The key is to make sure that it's not like,
It's not
over
overhead. It's salaries overhead. Elizabeth Dole made a big penny being the president of Red Cross.
Okay.
That's not overhead.
Yeah.
Why does she have to make that kind of money? She was married to a guy who made money. Her family had money. That's not why we give you the money. Red Cross.
I would agree that they
20%, 25%. That's fine. 80%, that's crazy.
And they distribute too based off of where they feel the money should go.
Right,
They
exactly.
don't distribute where, I can't donate. If I was Kevin Hart, I just said, hey, 25,000, let me send it to Harvey. I guess like rescue or whatever. It doesn't work like that. You give 25,000, okay, goodbye money. I don't know where that's going now. So
that kind of helps explain why something like Haiti, you didn't see a lot of that money because people were donating,
Exactly.
but like that money might have been going somewhere else, somewhere like even another part of the world.
Yeah.
Okay.
And see, just like with the donations, I volunteer at the food bank. I would give money to them because they're going to buy food and they send out food, and they have a lot of volunteers and that kind of thing. But Red Cross, they've not proven to be good stewards of the money that you give them.
Yeah. And there's been a big conflict, especially on social media, in regards to Red Cross, because some people are like, hey, give Red Cross a break, and others are just like, F Red Cross, like T.I., sticking the middle finger saying, them or FEMA.
Why am I not surprised?
But what you guys think about like the state and local level, like in their involvement with the recovery efforts? Like I know like the Texas Rainy Day Fund was $10 billion, and of course Abbott was refusing. What was Abbott refusing to do?
Well, this is what on CNBC this morning.
Okay.
The representative Ted Louis, he's a Democrat from California.
Okay.
He was saying that they're going to be voting on relief money for Harvey, and then he turns around and he says, but I don't understand why Abbott won't dip into the $10 billion rainy day fund that Texas has set aside.
So that's already money that's
in Texas.
Appropriated.
Huh.
He said they're going to wait for the government to give them money, but they're going to hold on to their money.
I'm curious as to the circumstances of that, because there's probably a variety of different things that go into that. Like, it's probably just not, oh, hey, we're greedy, we're just gonna wait on the federal government to do their thing and then we'll go in and do ours. Like, it doesn't, most of the time, more often than not, it's just not a bunch of like greedy people sitting there going, I'm curious as to what the explanation is, because I don't know it. But that's just another thing that, like, that we should definitely look into as to why, because they're gonna give reasons. Like, they have to give reasons, otherwise everyone's gonna be like, how they flayed Joel Osteen. Like, you got to give a reason to why you do something, otherwise, people are going to.
All right, let's talk about that then. Let's talk about Lakewood Church and their involvement or lack thereof involvement with the recovery effort.
I just have one comment on that. After watching his response and his, when he was on the Today Show and stuff, and his little rebuttal, the pictures that he showed, because he referred to a flooding that took place in 2001 or something, and those pictures that he showed at that interview look like the same pictures that were from 2001. That's
yeah, but didn't he say they were from 2001?
I don't care what he says.
And that's my problem. And that's my problem with a lot of the criticism.
Well, a lot of the criticism is the fact that just because you are a preacher does not mean your mouth is a book of gospel.
No,
I've been around a long time. I know some lying preachers, okay?
Yeah,
Let's just call a spade a spade.
Yeah.
And I don't put it past him either, because that picture was not in color. It looked like it was from an old camera, And believe me, I know old cameras because I have some. And what he was talking about, that water could not have gotten up in that stairwell in Green. I remember Greenway when it was the Summit, when it was a basketball arena.
Uh-huh.
That's not true.
So, Stephen, you
I don't
mentioned
trust
earlier that the reason why he delayed was because originally he was a distribution center.
Exactly. So essentially, from what I got from the interview, and this is from the same interview, the Today Show, and what I was reading around for rebuttals to see if there was somebody that was going to say, "Oh no, he's lying about that," or waiting on Sylvester Turner to say something like that, which he probably wouldn't.
Why would you think Sylvester Turner's going to say
Well,
that?
the thing about it is, if he's saying, "Oh, the city didn't tell me to get ready to be a shelter, so I didn't, prepare to be a shelter." Because they told me to do something else, or they asked me to do something else, the city would step in and say something if it was
to validate that.
Exactly, to either validate or invalidate. The city hasn't said anything about it.
Exactly.
I don't think that's necessarily guilt. They just have like a million other things on their plate.
So what is your explanation?
So
then?
the explanation that I understand from what he was given, because I'm an innocent until proven guilty type person, is
fine.
Is essentially that they were set up to be a distribution center after everything happened, like for all the different shelters. They were not asked to be a shelter until Tuesday or until around Monday or Tuesday, which is when they opened up, and they have about 5,000 people there. Last time I saw a count of it, because people shouldn't constantly.
Can I ask you a question?
Refugees.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why would he need the approval of the city to become a place? Because a lot of masjids
exactly
opened up as shelters, and without any communication, mosques.
Oh,
Islamic
masjids.
They call them masjids.
Yes.
I thought they were mosques is plural.
It's interchangeable.
Yeah.
The Arabic.
Yeah.
That's
word.
an interesting thing.
Yeah. But Muslim religious institutions open
there
up.
are a lot of churches open
without the communications of the city.
Okay.
And you saw that George R. Brown had twice as many people as it was set up for. And I'm going to wait for somebody to ask me to help my congregation?
It takes volunteers. It takes coordination.
All that man has to do is put that out there. Everybody in his church would have been there, because that's what people in his church do. They would have been there.
And that's the thing. How? So if you are set up with the city, and Lakewood Church has been here with the city for over 60 years, they were working with Sandy, they were working in Ike, it makes no sense for them to all of a sudden say, "Oh no, there's another storm, can't help anybody else." It just doesn't make any sense if they've been there for every other storm before.
Okay, and where was this church that has been there since 60 years when his father was there? Where's the church?
The church is around the center off of 59.
Exactly. Yeah. And that church could have been opened, right?
That's what they're saying, that they could have used that. But no one was estimating that there was going to be that many. And 4 miles down the road, there is a large shelter that was already taking people. And once that shelter was full, that's when they called upon them.
And you didn't know that shelter was going to get full.
They didn't know. There was
that. See, this is the thing,
okay.
Right? I mean, honestly, because first of all, no one knew as far as the magnitude of how wide stretch and how devastating the storm was going to be. No one knew. I mean, we could be honest about that.
That's valid.
Because that's extremely valid. I mean, unfortunately, I don't really need to have that one validated, because that's actually the truth. Okay. So as far as the magnitude's concerned and how many people are affected, no one knew what this was going to look like. So the complexion of how people were expected to help, they didn't know. That's why you had a lot of shotgun helpers around. They just went, "Hey, you know what? I mean, this looks like a complete poopy sandwich. Let me just jump in here and start helping." Unfortunately, when you're extremely huge, like this guy Osteen is, or whatever, you were expected to coordinate, communicate with other bodies or other institutions,
governmental bodies.
You're expected. When you're at that size, okay. But here's the thing that, because I always try and play devil's advocate in my head. Okay. If you're as big as this guy is, and it's part of the fabric of this place as he is, I mean, like, he is way too visible to kind of hide and to kind of like, oh, no, I'm just going to disappear and kind of fade away into this whole hurricane thing and pretend that I'm not really here. Like, he's too big to do that. That's like me trying to blend in and
there are
like
other preachers that still haven't stepped up. How many black preachers have you seen step up?
Oh, I haven't.
Have you heard of any?
I don't.
No.
And
I
there's
haven't.
some. And there's
Sugar
some
Creek.
big churches.
And Derek Muhammad, one of the Muslim activists here in Houston, he was right up in the thick of things in shelters and organizing things.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Because there are some big black churches in this city, and I haven't heard any of them jump to the front. It's not about
Sugar
just
Creek
Osteen.
Sugar Creek was one of the first places open to help people.
That's one out of how many?
But that's one of the largest. That's like the largest like black church in Houston.
And see, I don't know. Like you were saying that nobody knew how bad this was going to be. I don't agree with that because of the fact when they showed that hurricane out on the water, that hurricane was large.
And actually, and to add to that point, when it hit Galveston, it hit Galveston with a force. Like, we saw the wind blowing things away. So, I mean, even though it hadn't hit us yet, you can tell that this storm was coming with a vengeance.
Well, I have friends who are climatologists, okay, and actually work in the government. And having spoken with them, they said because of the climate change that's been happening and how warm the body of water, the Gulf of Mexico, has actually become, the power of this storm has actually increased at such a rate that's unprecedented to any other storm that's ever approached the coast.
So if the climatologists are telling you that, why would you not think it was going to be a bigger storm than the others that you? Like I said, I'm a survivalist.
Ask your government officials.
But
I don't have
Granny,
to ask my government officials.
They were saying up to like 35. That was the highest I saw them actually say. It wasn't until I saw on a Facebook post that someone said that the Houston Flood Association was saying like up to 50, even though everywhere else we were seeing at most 35 inches of rain, rather than like 50, which is what we actually got. So it's not like most people were on the same page, like as far as like media goes, of how bad this was going to be. They had kind of like the outline of what they were going to do, and then it turns out that outline wasn't enough. So then they started shifting towards doing other things.
We lived near the Braves Bayou before, and there was not a hurricane, and that place flooded.
Yeah.
That place flooded. Ireland floods at the drop of a hat.
Yeah.
You tell me hurricane, I'm going to believe it. These people who don't believe in global warming, okay, you got wildfires out west, and they talk about the high and the low and the meeting of the two. What makes you think there's not going to be a serious problem going on?
There's not a debate on whether or not the Earth's
I don't care if those people could accept the fact that it was or believe that it was going to be that large. It's large. It's getting worse every year.
So to her point, she thinks that the public was aware of how severe it is. I'm going to have to disagree with you on that one. The public, for the most part, do not pay attention.
No.
And so
they're too busy having hurricanes.
And I don't believe what your assumption is that I think the public is smart, and I don't. I'm saying I believe.
So that's one person.
I'm an army of one.
As influential as you are, because we've had your like speech on the show before.
No, I am an army of one. I admit that, but I stay safe because I'm an army of one. We have survived freezing temperatures out in the middle of nowhere in Ohio. You know why? Because I'm an army of one. I do what I need to do to protect my family.
But here's the thing, though, Granny. The unfortunate situation.
And for those of you who do not know, Sandra is Devontae's grandmother.
Right. But here's the unfortunate situation. So there are certain individuals who will see warning signs and actually pay attention and do something about it.
Exactly.
Obviously, the vast majority of folks do not do that.
They're like
when birds leave.
Yeah.
Like, if you noticed a couple of days before the storm hit, at least I noticed this. I didn't see not one bird, not one insect, I didn't see a rodent. I didn't see a cockroach. I didn't see nothing.
Exactly. They were gone. Yeah.
We
Like, they were-
mentioned
They
that
had
at the
moved.
house. We're like,
Yeah, like nothing. Like they
There
left
wasn't
the
a
house.
spider?
Like they were just like, I'm out. And if they leave, that might be that tells you something. Like
In
maybe.
Nacogdoches, you know those like
Devontae.
love bugs?
Oh, Gerald's here.
Oh.
Yeah, I've just been listening the entire time. You're supposing that people pay attention to signs like that, which in our
I
modern,
don't. I'm saying people need to start.
in a modern reality, they do not.
Right.
So
when I
And
take my
I think with
granddaughter, go ahead. Go ahead.
I think that the whole issue with the church is this man clearly has a persona based not on any kind of real religious value, but more of a celebrity one. So expecting someone like Joel Osteen to open up a church and do what needs to be done really was unreasonable. He's not about that sort of thing, in my opinion.
He's not genuine
And
at heart.
He
Is that
never,
what
he
you're
never was.
referring to?
I saw video of him visibly cringing when people were in his church being fed and being taken care of. So no.
What do you mean you saw a video of him? You got to show me this video.
Wait a minute. The man didn't want to be the follower after his father died. The brother was supposed to be. See, I am too nosy and I'm too opinionated. I understand that. And I accept that. You don't have to like what I think because I don't care.
Get him.
But
Get him.
I believe that man did not want to take over that church because he didn't feel he's not inspired by God. He's not the anointed one. He was just put in that space because just like Franklin, like the
Kirk Franklin?
Kurt Franklin?
no, the Graham,
T.D. Jakes?
Franklin Graham's son.
Billy Graham's son.
They
Oh,
all
right,
go
yeah.
they send that big major money to the next generation. This is my opinion. And don't think it's just because I don't have the religion. I was raised a Baptist. I know that. I was baptized. I got all that.
Uh-huh.
But I see the cynicism in the church. And everybody who was a preacher, their son is not equipped to follow and take over that flock.
Generally
And
speaking,
he
yes.
is not qualified to take over that flock either.
If they haven't had the appropriate like training and they gone to seminary, obviously I believe that. Well, not obviously that I believe that you are called to do God's work that way. Not everybody is called. I will say that there is a fragility that is about him that doesn't necessarily scream, "Hey, I'm a leader." And take the interview that he had with Today's, and what was it called? Was it not Good Morning America, but it said just Today's on there.
Today.
Anyway, he he doesn't even read the social media. Like he doesn't read social media, so he doesn't read the negative posts or anything like that. Like he just legitimately doesn't, and there was an air of that, like he has people that read it for him, that filter these things for him, so not to just kind of like, interrupt what he has necessarily going on, and that may extend to a variety of other things.
I do want to touch on one thing here, kind of touching on the good and bad of leaders and preachers and other religious leaders. I do want to transition to the good and bad of people, because
all right.
Yeah, you ready for this, Gerald? You're gonna get the first question.
I'm so ready for this.
All right, so let's take, for instance, the donations, right? Right when George R. Brown opened, they were calling folks to donate, and a lot of people showed up to either donate their time or to donate food, water, clothes. So that was a good part of it. The bad part of it was some of those donations were garbage. People were donating used underwear. Some of them had stains on them. People were giving out like food that they wouldn't eat, and I hate whenever someone donates food that they themselves would not eat.
You gotta be kidding me.
I'm not. I wish I was.
Like are these like moldy cans or something or what?
Yeah, like expired food that, again, if you're not going to eat it, why give it to someone else? Gerald, you had something to say about the good and bad?
Well, it wasn't so much about the donations as it's basically like the whole overall effort we have as far as like disaster relief. and mitigation and planning in this country. My father, he was in the Army, and he had like a saying he always used to tell me every time he used to screw up. He would always tell me that piss poor practice leads to piss poor performance, right? So we keep having these same lessons literally every single time that there is a disaster. People do not seem to learn. People do not seem to care. Nothing is done. We have a city like Houston, which is I know y'all live in Houston. I know you love the city, but it's a huge unmanaged sprawl on a floodplain that has been needing. Okay. that has been needed. That needs actual city planning to actually mitigate disasters like this. Because now your city is underwater. You're living in Atlantis right now.
Gerald.
So
Gerald, most of the city is dried out.
Yeah.
1, 2.
No, listen, this is hyperbole. I'm just saying. I'm just blacking out right now. I know. I'm just saying. Like Katrina. Katrina could have been prevented. A lot of these things could have been prevented if people actually listened to people who are experts and subject matter leaders in their field. But we refuse to do that because we're a country that likes to think that we're independent, that likes to think that the average man knows best. And unfortunately, that is not the case.
You took a shot at zoning.
We need to actually... Excuse me?
You took a shot at Houston zoning. I got to interrupt you on this one.
All right, is it going to derail the conversation
Sylvester
here?
Turner himself, Democratic mayor, like he knows the score. He said himself, even if we had a bunch of excessive zoning laws that like cities like New York or LA or all these other places would have, we would still have a flooded city, except it would have zoning laws.
The difference is Houston should not be where Houston is.
Yeah, it's in a bayou.
It's in a bayou. Florida, no one should be living in the state of Florida. So that's a whole nother conversation due to the fact that Houston's on reclaimed land. Like it should not be here.
It should be like, what, 50 miles north?
Not only that, you have another. We have like several disasters going on with that. Not just about the people being displaced, the environmental. We have huge like yards of not yards, but just like I guess like just huge facilities that have been flooded and have all sorts of chemical runoff just flowing into the streets and out into the. It's just like it's a total disaster. It's a totally complete disaster that could have been prevented if people actually just cared. Just cared enough to say, hey,
so you're suggesting, Gerald, I guess what you're saying here, I guess what you're saying, Gerald, is that people really only care if something slaps them in the face.
Yes.
Because I mean, think about every single thing that's ever moved, with the exception of gun laws. Something happened, something terrible that hit a lot of people at once. And then that's when we actually make a move. We're very reactive.
Yes.
Well, because before then, everything's just conjecture. Like before then, like it's just like,
right.
Well, what if this happens? Well, that's not likely.
So then let's retouch the global warming thing.
All right.
Because there's been plenty of evidence. Like this should not even be a discussion at this point.
It is not a question of is the temperature going up. It is a question of whether or not
we are responsible.
How much of it and how fast of it is us, and whether or not should we be moving towards adaptability, or should we be moving towards prevention and mitigation, or some combination of all three.
It's also a question of like what are the effects? Because not too many people care about the effects. They're just looking at it like, okay, it exists. It's like, great, it exists, but like Gerald said, I mean, like, what are we doing to, I guess, like, prepare ourselves for these effects that are actually coming? Cold places
like
are
right
getting
now.
insanely colder, okay? And snow is happening, like, at alarming, like, rates in some places that aren't prepared to have this kind of snow. We have flooding in places, not just Houston, but, like, Sierra Leone and India, different places. There are flooding that never really experienced a magnitude of flooding that's happened. Who's changing? Who's preparing? Who's taking steps to say, okay, this is the world we live in now, so now we have to change
and
adapt to this sort of
like
global warming experience.
People's wake-up calls should have, the wake-up call should have been, it's okay to have a 100-year storm every now and then, right? You have a 100-year storm. Once in 100 years. But like having like 3 or 4 in the same year is insane.
Yeah.
And and it's literally an act of God that we should probably, try to mitigate.
The question is, all right, so we live in a world where everything's pretty much run off legislation. Like, pretty much more often than not, there takes some sort of governmental, guidance towards something. The people disagree enough, they just kick people out, or if they agree enough, they vote people in. If this is such a big issue and it's so obvious to everybody, then why aren't these people who supposedly would make these changes being elected?
Because of capital.
Well, here's another thing. So to add to that point, the main reason why you're not seeing, I guess, more conscious folks running is because no one wants to be in that circus.
Mm-hmm.
Like, imagine this. Take for you, for instance. You seem like a very level-headed person sometimes.
Relatively.
Really?
Sometimes.
Get 'em.
Yeah, I mean, I prefer him over Trump.
I see how it is.
Yeah.
I see how
But
it is.
okay, but imagine this. Imagine when you do run, okay? Your whole history is checked out.
2040.
You don't have any kind of privacy anymore. Every time
Correct.
you say something, it's being ridiculed by everybody.
Yes.
You
People
know.
that are supposed to be protecting you, the people that aren't
Right.
supposed to be protecting you.
You're not getting paid that much, and so you resort to getting most of your income through lobbyists.
Yes.
I mean, that's how you're able
Interest
to
groups.
hire
Live.
the security you need to, and live in the neighborhoods that you need to, so that you're not harassed by the general populace.
Every day. Yeah.
So how does a normal person even survive in that type of setup? And part of it is our fault. We're partially responsible for creating that environment.
We are.
We're not partially responsible. We're
And-
totally
Well,
responsible.
Entirely.
And Stephen,
Yeah.
like the reason why you don't see any of this being addressed legislatively is because a lot of the business interests that make their money exploiting the earth and exploiting the workers that produce their wealth don't want that to happen. They don't want to kind of change that. That would screw everything up. Why would you let somebody come in and mess up your money?
There's a timing.
like why
aspect
would
to
you ever
this.
do that?
There's a timing aspect of this. This is what I think that like companies that specialize in oil and gas and like Exxon or Chevron and all these other ones. This is essentially what they're doing. They're doing the long game. They know that eventually they're going to have to switch over. And that's why they're dumping money into research and technology in order to perfect solar energy, current energy. Like literally they're sticking turbines in the water to try to perfect the use of wave energy. GE is right now. They need time to move a massive organization in order to survive the coming energy revolution, which it is coming.
But
We're eventually going to switch
they
to
knew
these
this was
things.
coming.
That's
They
Yeah.
knew this was
exactly
coming
right.
several
I was gonna
generations
say,
ago.
They don't need time, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, this
They
stuff
don't
has
need
been.
time.
They don't.
The
They don't.
first
they
solar
just kinda
panel was
like,
created
this has
back
been
in like was it
Question.
1912?
So the current solar, like we'll talk about the current solar panel, the one that exists right now.
Yeah.
Question: do you know how much heat energy, like how much energy from the sun it can actually use?
It can store several hours worth of energy.
It shows it uses 10% of the energy that is actually forced upon it, and then it expels the rest 90% as heat. I read a paper on this. Like it is it's not as efficient as everyone tries to say it is. It can store up a certain amount of energy.
And you want to know why it's not as efficient? You want to know why it's not as
Why?
efficient now as it should be? It's because back during the Carter administration, actually had a team within the Department of Energy that was researching solar panel, technology.
Mhm.
And then immediately, like literally, when the Reagan administration came in, they ceased all of that. They had solar panels. They had solar panels on the White House, and the minute Ronald Reagan got in, he took those things off as quickly
That's
as he
true.
possibly could.
They were up there.
Okay, I
But see,
definitely hear that.
Being the conspiracy theorist that I am,
Hit 'em. Hit 'em.
I believe that over the years, companies have bought up, because people are out there and they're thinking and they're creating stuff,
Absolutely.
but companies come along, they buy it and they put it in the shelf
Yep.
because it goes against their money makers. I personally believe, I've been in healthcare for 30 some years,
Get 'em.
that there are cures to diabetes. There's better solutions than what they've got.
Mhm.
But
Medicine
People are
makes too much
making
money.
too much money
Medicine
off
makes
of
way too much money.
insulin.
And I
off of
know your
needles,
face.
off of-
You guys.
Yeah,
No,
yeah, you
no.
cure cancer.
Steven, you need to realize that, like, scientists have been working on different innovations
for years.
literally 100 years. Like
I
the
agree. Yes.
So like, and the main reason why there's been roadblocks is because of companies.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
because
So-
you cure cancer
Dude,
tomorrow.
listen to Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay. First
Listen
of
to
all,
Tesla. He
Yeah,
didn't
Tesla.
come out. He didn't come out all of a sudden. The only one that had an idea about an electric car. Jay Leno has an old electric car, and it's 40 years old.
Cars
Yes,
were
the-
originally
okay,
the
we're
original
gonna talk
car.
There
about
have
who
been
killed the
electric
car now.
cars.
Yeah.
Okay.
But,
So
but still, you cure cancer tomorrow. Get back to the healthcare debate real quick. You cure cancer tomorrow. You have people out of work.
Out
Yes,
of work.
I
You have an
know,
oncologist
I am
who is
aware.
completely. I mean, like out of he's mopping the floor now.
you think
know?
that they have the cure for cancer
No,
just
I was-
in some vault somewhere, and that they're just purposely not?
Okay, erectile
No.
dysfunction and cancer has been around for equal amounts of time. Am I right?
Well,
One's
they've
more
always existed.
They've always existed.
in one
Yeah.
form or another. Yeah.
One's been remedied, the other one hasn't. One's life threatening, the other one isn't. Which ones have we fixed right now? Which ones have we not? I mean,
You're talking about
You have-
incredibly complex.
but
No,
still,
but Steven, at
And
the same,
And I'm talking about it, having been an old person who's had a few diseases in my day. I know that when I had polio when I was a kid, and the things that they did, we had quinine. They stopped giving us quinine. They said quinine can only be given to people with malaria. Why? It's working for me. They won't let me take quinine because they want me to buy Lyrica. I'm allergic to Lyrica, but I still can't get quinine. So they don't care about my health. They don't care about my quality
I
of
do
life.
need to add some more to that, and this will hopefully bring light to you, Steven. When it comes to diabetes, because I know you mentioned diabetes earlier, the biggest thing about diabetes is the fact that there's a miscommunication about diet and health in America. And the vast majority of it is because of marketing. And this stems back this goes
dealing with
way
milk,
back.
Dealing with sugar actually being the problem with everything.
Margarine was supposed to be healthier than butter, and margarine ended up having trans fats, which were far deadlier consequences than
Eggs
butter.
are bad.
But
You're
the
just
main
supposed
reason
to eat
why was because they needed to figure out a way to make money off of different products. And here's another thing that's really funny.
Yes.
The original bread that was created back centuries ago, because humans have been making bread for years, centuries.
They actually used it to
gluten.
They actually used to use it as like napkins.
Yeah.
As weird as that sounds.
But bread already has a lot of nutrients in it.
Yes.
When we switched to the industrial area and we actually started extracting the flour base that we originally had and reducing it down to just the bare, and then people started having malnutrition because there wasn't any nutrients in the bread that they were eating. They made the smart idea of reintroducing nutrients back into the bread.
Enriched
bread. When if they didn't mess with the formula of bread in the first place, we wouldn't even have that situation. But they found a way to capitalize on that.
Yes.
And that's been the history of America as a whole, is the things that get pushed are the things that make money.
I agree.
And so when you don't see certain things, it's either because it might be affecting someone else's money, or it itself does not make money.
My grandfather was 98 years old when he finally passed, and he lived in Arkansas. Grandmother made fried chicken, rice, gravy made from the chicken fat, and eggs every morning for breakfast.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah.
He lived to a ripe old age. She died at 85. So
It's
this
the
is
sugar.
food
It's the
is
sugar.
not killing you.
I don't
It's
want
the
to turn this
Barfield,
this episode into like a health episode.
But I just want to say one thing about the animals we were talking about a long time ago. Like you were saying about animals. When I take my granddaughter to school in the morning, I always show her, because we pass by farms, right? I show her there's a storm coming because the horses and the cows are there together and they're huddled in a corner. If you read the animals, they'll tell you what's going on.
Yes, that's
I
very
was
true.
raised on a farm. I know that if you see the animals doing certain things, you better get ready. 'Cause it's coming.
agree.
Another thing too, if you know an old person with arthritis, if they start feeling pain in their joints,
The barometric pressure changes. The barometric like.
What did I tell you
my
about
tricky-
Harvey? What did I tell you?
she already knew it was coming like weeks ago.
Yes. And it has to do with barometric pressure.
Yeah.
I have an artificial ankle, and it told me Harvey's coming. It'll be here in a minute.
She should be the weather person.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into our last talking point here. So I mean, we've all seen the different aspects of the shelters opening up and volunteering and people really pouring in.
How many people have died?
Oh, I don't have that figure.
43.
43.
Which
43 people
for
have died.
for a big city, that's huge.
Out of 11. No, this is like 43 people, guys. Like, this is not a disaster. Like, it was a disaster, but like in terms of like how bad this was.
43 people didn't die, but it wasn't a disaster.
Here's the thing: 43
Comparing
people
it
died.
to Katrina,
compared to
you're-
Katrina or something
Yeah.
like that. This was very well managed compared to.
But
Katrina.
and part of it was because the Houston populace stepped up to help each other, right?
Yes.
You know, the response time, we didn't see the same response time that Katrina saw. Because, like,
Exactly.
people were waiting in their homes. We had folks out, like the Cajun folks, and, of course, random people with
Exactly.
air mattresses come and get folks.
And a lot of people in this town have boats. A
Yeah,
lot
right.
of these
That
people
definitely
have
helped.
boats, kayaks, and all kinds of stuff.
So, guys, do you think that, you know, this attitude of togetherness and Houston Strong and all the other garbage, do you think that
Garbage. Good job.
Do you think
I'm
that's
wearing
gonna
a shirt
stay?
that says Houston Strong, and I'm not gonna lie to you. Sometimes I roll my eyes when people say it because I'm thinking like 5 years after this, and I'm like, yeah, how are people gonna be like? Are people gonna be? You gonna remember Houston Strong when you're yelling at somebody
In
who
traffic?
they, exactly? You know what I mean?
When you shoot somebody during road rage,
40,
Exactly.
Sweet Jesus.
What about Joe?
43 people died, but it wasn't a disaster.
He's still on that. Get him, Gerald.
Get him! Like, how many people died during Sandy?
I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't think that,
Yeah,
was a lot.
who's gonna like restore that
And that's-
information in their
and-
mind?
And that's the
really.
thing I'm saying is it's like for a literal 1 in a million year flood, only 43 people died out of millions in an area.
43 people died, and it cost probably like $300 billion worth of damage.
Yes, it did
Well,
cost
and
a lot
and
of
to be
damage.
fair, the
It was
vast
20
majority,
something billion.
the vast majority of the folks who did die were in their vehicles.
Exactly. People that
The people who were hard headed and
Exactly.
did not stay where they were supposed to, and they were out in the streets.
because even since it hit Corpus Christi, only 60-something people, the total for all the area, 43 here. But even with everybody, because the rest of it was only a few more than that. So Corpus didn't lose as many.
things can
But
be
it's a
replaced,
smaller area.
people cannot.
Yeah.
And I guess that's kind of like the point I was making there. Is it's like this was actually we were very blessed because this could have been a hell of a lot worse.
Yeah.
Like, to be completely and utterly honest. Like, yeah, there's 450,000 homes, I think, that are essentially been taken out or are still underwater or something like that that people are going to be displaced from. But I mean, all in all,
That and also too, it also, this is a horrible way to look at it, but it's also created opportunities because those FEMA jobs that opened
Yeah,
up.
the people
Stephen
that
talked
do-
about the FEMA opportunities.
so
Adjusters.
essentially there's a wide variety of jobs. I went on Indeed. Indeed is like if you haven't like looked for a job in the last 5-6 years, Indeed is just like it's kind of like ZipRecruiter. It's not as good as ZipRecruiter, but essentially it's just like a general space where job postings are put out. You can submit your resume. You can do all kinds of stuff. There are literally like 40 jobs on there for under FEMA, and they're subcontracted companies. So if you need a job out there and you need something to do, some way to help, but also some way to pay your bills, like, you could work for FEMA at least for the duration of the cleanup and everything.
Yeah.
And there's going to be a lot of cleanup.
147 deaths in the Northeast United States, Canada, and the Caribbean responsible for Sandy was responsible for. So
147.
147.
A storm that was probably like what 2-3 times bigger than that, and the area was.
It was only 100. It was only 147 deaths. It wasn't bad.
Well, I mean,
I guess that's what Steven's logic for that is.
See, here's my thing. It's just like it's not that
Get 'em,
people who
Gerald.
die were not. It's not sad that they died, but the thing about it is our levees didn't break, our dams didn't break. They're still intact. They're worse
Our,
for
our,
wear.
our poorly maintained dams and levees didn't break this time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They didn't break this time, and they're definitely doing more work on them. The Army Corps of Engineers is working on it, and now that we know how important they are, people are like,
we didn't know they were important before. Come on,
we knew they were important, but the thing about it is, it's a presence of mind kind of thing. And anybody that's worked in news, and Fonte, you've worked in news, you know how people have a limited attention span, and you know how you got to keep information.
and they forget.
Exactly, and they forget things. And honestly, if a bunch of people didn't die from it, stuff can be replaced. They're probably not as worried about it. They're just getting back
So
to their
basically,
normal
what
lives.
you're saying is it might just go back to status quo as it was before.
Yeah, they're gonna go back to status quo.
right,
At the very least, I hope
I'm gonna start closing things out though. But
yeah.
so Granny, do you have any final thoughts?
Well, being an old person, I was really dismayed by how everything to try to get help was on social media, because I tried using the websites that they gave on the news, phone numbers that they gave on the news.
A lot of them
You
were
couldn't
faulty.
get through. Yeah, you couldn't get through to anybody. And when you're dealing with a population that is as old as Houston is, and there are a lot of us here, you can't have everything on social media because those old people don't know social media.
So it was an epic. I guess it would be a big failure on the city's part, or is that?
Well, I don't think you can make it a city problem because everything is moving in that direction. But I mean, they complained about Obamacare. The website didn't do this. I think they're totally forgetting the fact that there are some people who need to talk to a human being. And they have to remember that you have an old population in this city. There are retirees. There's a bunch of us that we don't want to be exposed to everything they tell you. Your identity can be this, and people can know where you are. Don't post everything. And then they turn around and put everything on social media. That's contraindicated.
And to add to that, if you weren't connected to the right individuals, you wouldn't have access to information.
It's very true. Very true.
Yeah, that's a good point.
The numbers should be working. Like that is not very good at all. Like and it's very true. People should be more cognizant. Like you can't tell people, hey, make sure you write all these numbers down on a piece of paper, and then like none of the numbers work.
Yeah.
And I hope it was just that they were busy numbers and that people were able to contact them, and that was the problem. And
I would
not just
probably
the fact
add
that
though.
they
I would
didn't.
probably add though, like because of news was so short staffed, they probably didn't even vet those things. They were probably just taking that stuff verbatim from wherever source they got it from,
Probably like old numbers,
and didn't test it. And that's a failure on the news's part. You should have tested something before you put that out on air, because people are going to be using it. They're desperate.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a knock on them. Steven, you got any final thoughts?
I mean, just watch out, guys. There's plenty of things you can do, but watch out for people trying to scam you. Like, huge thing. Be careful. If someone comes to your door saying blah blah blah, this, ask for a badge number and call a number to verify. Yeah, we just got through talking about numbers that aren't working and stuff like that, but there are a lot that are. Say a FEMA worker or someone from the Homeland
Electric
Security
company or gas company.
You call, you look on your phone, or you look in the phone book, because there is still a phone book, and that those numbers still work.
Look at your bill.
You look at your bill. Exactly. You got it in a drawer somewhere. Look, call this number before you let any of these people in the house, because they could be scammers. You're just calling to verify, and there's nothing wrong with that. Do not be afraid to question somebody if they make claims to you about what's going on with your house, or maybe they're offering jobs or this or that and the third. Always vet what you're looking at.
Nice. Curtis, you got any final thoughts?
Yeah. From being from out of town, I'm not originally from here, and being very new, quite fresh, only about 2 months in. This whole thing has been very interesting, and you're talking about bringing everybody together and so on. I've been amazed at the efforts that people have been making on an individual level, not a non-organized level. So having been part of those people who are going out doing demos and helping people pack up or whatever, don't be afraid to walk around your neighborhood or whatever, and just, if you see somebody working in the yard, you see somebody carrying couch out from, offer to help. I mean, you don't have to give up a lot of stuff, just do what you can, do what you feel comfortable doing. I mean, if you're not comfortable going to somebody's house and helping them out that way, help them out some other way, move some trash off, away from their yard for them or something like that. There's tons of ways you can do stuff. I've enjoyed it the whole time. Everybody's been receptive to having me help them, and I think it'll stay for a while. You were asking me, how long this Houston Strong vibe is gonna roll or whatever. Having been through Sandy and seen the togetherness and stuff that we experienced in the Northeast, it sticks around. The kumbaya feel does kind of go away. That vibe does go away, but still, people are reminded on a day to day. Just like, hey, that guy's my neighbor, and he, when it got thick, he did reach out. So that impression never goes away. So. Don't be afraid to come together as a community, but also just your neighbor, make an impression.
I agree.
Gerald, you got any final thoughts?
I'm just glad that, the couches account wasn't as bad. I'm glad that people are kind of coming together and working together to help each other in this crisis, and hopefully the feeling will remain the same.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate everybody coming on the show today and joining our conversation. And for those listening on Afro Vibes Radio Houston or watching on YouTube, make sure you check us out at totalmedulla.com for extra extended content and added notes. You can always like us on Facebook. Just look at Total Medulla. Or you can follow me on Instagram as Devo Primo, or Twitter. Just type in Total Medulla. But I appreciate you guys joining us tonight, and we'll see you guys in the next episode.
I'll probably never be back.
Get out of here. Come on. You have to come back.
Oh, man.
You got to tell us embarrassing stories about Devontae.
I don't think our listeners need that.
Tell us about the dread phase. He used to have dreads.
The dread phase.
Yeah.
Oh, we all been there, man. Come on.
Dreads,
Leave him alone.
twist, he had them all.